And it's not staycations.
Nope.
It's like, I want to live vicariously through your vacations.
Okay. I take vacation and leave the country. So like that is when I take time off. It's because I'm leaving the country and going somewhere. She literally walks like down the aisle. I walk up to her, like I run up to her and I'm bawling. Like, oh, I can still like feel the emotion.
So you're a new grad, you're thinking
to the choir.
You're thinking, yeah, here we go. But then after you get years under your belt, you realize I cannot save.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Souly Human podcast. My name is Jasmine Naomi and I am the host. Souly Human is a podcast where we talk about mental health and we talk about spirituality and acknowledge that we all have our own human experiences, but we all are also connected to soul, which connects us to ourselves, to the people around us, and kind of just talk about the experiences that we have that connect us to ourselves and to each other. So I have two very exciting guests here today. I have a cousin and a friend. So both social workers. So I'm hyped because there's nothing I love more than talking to another social worker. So let's get into it. Sairah, why don't you introduce yourself first? But please tell us what it is who you are without telling us what you do for work.
Okay, so having to describe myself without talking about what I do is very difficult.
Right.
This is an active struggle. I am a very social person. I am an extreme extrovert. I love to meet people. I love to talk to people. I love to go everywhere and do everything, and I kind of always want to be in the buzz.
Okay.
So I would describe myself as just a very open, inviting, social, bubbly, crazy dog mom person.
All right. I love it. And then if you can now also tell us a little bit about what it is you do as a social worker.
So, nail on the head, I'm a social worker. I currently am a medical social worker. So I am working in the hospital, which is really fun, which is where I met Jackie. And as far as like the job, so what I'm mainly doing is I'm working with people that are admitted inpatient in the ER, in the ICU, in the OB, and other, like floors within the hospital. But basically meeting with people while they're in the hospital, discussing psychosocial needs. A lot of mental health issues arise around that. Working with people not just while they're experiencing crisis or some sort of situation related to their psychosocial overall health, but also working with people around like linkage to community resources and kind of, one day it's a conversation about what community resources around caregiving are there. The next day it's a very personal, in-depth, raw mental health assessment for someone post a suicide attempt, for example. So it's a lot. Like you don't know what's going to come at you from one day to the next in the hospital, but it keeps you on your toes and it keeps you busy.
Okay. It sounds like it. I feel like that's got to be something pretty unique to medical social work as far as like the wide array of things that you could have at any moment in the day. So, okay.
It's fun.
It sounds fun. It sounds fun. It sounds exhausting and fun at the same time. So I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay, Jackie, can you tell us about Jackie without telling us what you do for work?
Well, first and foremost, I am a mother. I'm a mom. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a mentor. I'm an aunt, a family person. I strive to carry myself on a daily basis with integrity and hopefully show our new generation of social workers what it means to help. So I'm a helping person.
Okay. And that comes in really handy at work. What do you do for work?
So currently I have been the social service manager for 2 hospitals.
Okay.
And in the medical field, so medical social work. Previous to that, I was doing multiple programs within the county. agencies. So a lot of individual therapy, individual family therapy, working with adolescents in and out of juvenile hall. So I've got the experience working the therapy piece of it.
Okay.
I'm an LCSW, so that also has helped me to mentor new up and coming,
Hi.
hopefully soon licensed social workers
Yes.
in the field where we're at. So we really don't emphasize too much in doing therapy in the hospital setting. However, I think that a well-rounded social worker should always have those components of what we do, which is medical social work, the therapy piece, the community activism, and all of that. So that's in a nutshell who I am.
Yes, I love it. And I know you have a wide array of work experience before the social work, before the hospital as well.
Yes.
So you've touched on working with other demographics as well.
Very much so. So I have a wide range of experience I started out in the social work field in the nonprofit world, which is near and dear to my heart. I love the nonprofit world. And if I can find something to go back into the nonprofit world, with like a higher base salary and like doing something at a higher license level, then my heart's there. But my entrance into the field was actually through volunteer work, because I volunteered on a crisis hotline for a local nonprofit in Pomona that's still operating today. But it's basically like a well-rounded kind of all in-house sexual assault crisis center. So my entrance into the field was working with survivors of sexual assault, of rape, incest, kind of the whole work. So initially I started as a volunteer on a crisis hotline. And then from there, I went into prevention education when a position opened up with the agency. So then I was working with like teens. I was going into the middle schools and high schools and just kind of educating on what is sexual harassment, what is cyberbullying, what is human trafficking, different things that were kind of, there and up front for that time period. From there, I got international experience and I went into the Peace Corps, which had been a long-standing goal of mine since high school at that point, which I love. Still the best job. Sorry, Jackie's but still the best job I've ever had.
Wow.
I was a youth development volunteer in Morocco. I lived there for 3 years. I did a lot of grassroots work, partnering with local NGOs there. I did a lot of work around like women's rights in Morocco, HIV and AIDS awareness, youth empowerment. I worked a lot with girls whose families, like girls lived in villages that had primary schools in the villages, but no schooling beyond the primary level. So if they wanted to go to like junior high or high school, they had to leave the village and live at a boarding house and things like that. So we did a lot of like female empowerment, youth empowerment around education. I mean, all kinds of stuff in the Peace Corps. So it was really cool.
That's crazy. I don't know that is so cool. I don't know if I told you, I was supposed to go to the Peace Corps.
No.
I was going to be a youth and development volunteer as well. I was supposed to go to Peru, and I was set to leave in September, but then COVID happened.
No.
Yeah. And so they shut it down.
Yeah.
But that's wild. That is so cool.
We can talk about Peace Corps for days.
That'll have to be a separate episode for sure. So you both have a lot of experience as a social worker. So I want to hear from Jackie and then Sairah. How would you describe, in a small nutshell, because we could go on for days with just that, how would you describe a social worker?
I think a social worker is someone who has the passion to serve, in a nutshell. Serve in many capacities. It could be serving in a grassroots level. It could be serving in a more higher capacity in government. But I think overall that passion that we have to serve and help and try to make a change and try to make a difference is what a social worker, to me, should encompass. That overall sense of duty to try to make things better for someone else other than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I think I think to be a social worker, you have to, like, your passion has to be in it. You have to want to do it. I also, part of my experience was that I was in child welfare and so I had worked in foster care. I was a placement caseworker and then a team supervisor for a while. And especially with that type of job, but I would say really any job, I've always said you have to have like it takes a certain type of person. To be able to handle stuff like that, day in and day out, the frustrations, the angers, the shock, coupled with like the sheer amount of like happiness and elation when things go right. It takes a certain type of person that can take the blows, right? So I think a person who is always flexible and always willing to learn more and who's motivated to learn more. Because I think if you're not motivated, if you're not in it, it's not the best place to be, right? So I think someone who is very flexible, very adaptive, very motivated, intrinsically motivated to move forward.
Yeah.
But let me give you a disclaimer, though. Not everyone knows exactly that that's their passion. That's what they want to do.
True.
Which I think I would put myself in that. So social work was pretty much laid on my lap for me. It's not something I pursued. It's not something I ever fathomed or imagined. I want to be a social worker. I don't think I started out with that passion. Being many, many, many years ago, being newly divorced, single mom, trying to figure out what am I going to do now? I have this child. Really, I didn't know what to do. Working in a setting where I was close to a university, I would see professors come and go to the office that I was in. And here comes one professor who happened to be the dean of the School of Behavioral Sciences at the time and asked me a question. I was just a secretary. Asked me a question. What do you have planned for yourself? You're still young. I was in my 20s. And I just looked at him and I said, well, I don't know. And he said, you would be a good social worker. You have the skills. I see it in you. And I thought, oh, that's great. Wonderful. And every week he would come and he would talk to me, and he told me that the way I handled situations and the way I spoke with people, and he reiterated, Jackie, you would be a good social worker. Have you thought of going to school? Have you thought of going to this school? And I said, that's a great thought, but I don't have the finances. So again, I think truly there's a plan for each one of us. And when it's God's plan, when it's set in the stars or whatever your beliefs are, when it's something for you, it'll happen. A door will open. And he opened the door for me. And next thing I know, I'm in the master's program of social work. I didn't know how I got there. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I graduated, I finished, and then I said, oh,
This is it.
Okay, this is my passion. So going into it, it wasn't like, it was more of a self-discovery, like, I think this is what I'm meant to do. I think this is something I'm good at. So
And because each person has their own journey of getting to a place where it's something that they're passionate, I think it looks differently for everyone. So you've both mentioned, passion or internal drive. I know for myself, when I am working with the foster youth at the group home, because I'm so passionate about it, because it's so important to me that these kids have a place to heal and are taken care of and receive the treatment that they need. I also get furious when things do not go how I think they should go. So I think in a place of passion, really, there's all those deep feelings and emotions because you care so much about it.
I feel that.
Yeah, right? And I think as a social worker, we connect with people in different ways on different levels. And so I'm curious to hear your experience on what that passion looks like when it's, on fire.
Oh, I have a good one that comes to mind.
Please.
In a really positive way. So I mentioned that I used to work in foster care, right? And and Jackie knows this, I too have a great passion for foster care and all things involved there. So as a caseworker, as a foster care caseworker, I had been the direct caseworker for a family. This was in the Midwest, so this was not in California. I used to work for a foster care agency in Illinois. So I had this patient, I had this person's case, and I want to say I think I'd been working with them at least a year, maybe right around the year mark. And you go through ups and downs with people. And so I had been through really high highs with the family. I'd been through really low lows with the family. I was there when the relationship between both of the parents in the case fell apart. And, in the wake of that, you have 3 kids, right? And a family, whether they're together or not, is still involved in the foster care system. And I worked with that mom through it all, right? And so we go to court, and we had been anticipating, and my court report recommended a full case closure. Kids had been in aftercare. They had been home with mom. Mom had done it all. Dad had fallen off at some point, and my report was glowing. Like, this family is ready. We don't need to be in their lives anymore. So that was my recommendation: case closure, aftercare completed. And she was so stressed out, the mom, the whole time before. The court system was not that competent. There was a lot of unnecessary barriers and hiccups. So we go before the judge, we have the permanency hearing. They ask everyone, involved. You have the parents' attorneys, the GAL, the judge, everybody. What's the recommendation? Do you agree with the court report? And one by one, they all said yes. And then I hear the judge close the case out. And the mom is standing in the middle of she's standing where the desk is up there by the judge. And her back was to me, so I was in the pews. But even the judge commented on she was crying happy tears. And then she turns around and she literally walks down the aisle. I walk up to her, I run up to her, and I'm bawling. I could still feel the emotion.
Yeah.
But I'm bawling, and I just grip her and hug her in the middle of the courtroom.
Yeah.
So that was a good feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think there's always moments like that. So to experience one like that where you see something go full circle and have a positive outcome is so
Yes.
special.
And it's it was your sweat, your tears, your blood, right
Yeah.
there, with the clients, and to see that come to fruition was really good.
Yeah, that's amazing. I hope to experience a moment like that. I love that. Especially when you were so into the family.
Yes.
You were immersed in them for so long and walking with them on the journey. So that must have been really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it still chokes me up.
I believe it. I have same. When I think of certain clients, I will still feel choked up.
Oh.
What about you?
I have experienced both. That moment where it's wow, I made a difference. That moment where, oh my goodness, everything that I did, everything that we worked on didn't work. So then at that particular instance, I started thinking, am I good enough? Did I do the right interventions? Did I say the right thing? What did I do wrong? And I start second guessing myself. So there's that frustration, not only because the person didn't want to follow through, but that frustration of, what did I do? What didn't I do? What could I have done better? And definitely I've experienced those moments. One in particular, which was a good one. Obviously, the bad one's a bad one. But a good one that I keep in my heart is I started working with adolescents in a program where these kids are in and out of juvenile hall, not going to school, very, very close to breaking laws, and it just a mess, a hot mess. A young lady, she was, maybe 14, 15 years old. We literally pulled her out from under a bridge and sent her to juvenile hall. And her case was one of my toughest ones. To see her in that condition, to see the choices that landed her where she was at in that particular stage in her life was devastating. And we're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about bringing somebody from the ground and trying to lift them up. And I worked with her for about a year and a half. And then the program's done, right? then you don't know what happens.
Yeah.
In the back of your mind, you're always wondering.
Where are
Right.
they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a couple of years passed. These people walk into the office and they're asking to speak with me. I had finished up with another client, and I walk out to the lobby, and there's this mom, and the face looked familiar, and there's this young lady, very well dressed, nicely groomed, pretty makeup, very well put together, big smile on her face, and I'm like, she looks familiar, but no.
Yeah.
And she looks at me and she hugs me. She's like, "Do you remember me?" And I was like, "I do, but is it really you?" In the back of my mind, I'm just like, "What was her name? What was her name?" I think I played it off really well. But she looks at me and she's like, "I'm so and so. I'm 19 years old. I finished nursing school. I did the accelerated program. I'm this, and I wanted to show you my degree." And I thought to myself,
Yeah.
wow, it was a complete
Wow.
turn of events in her life.
Yeah.
She said, "Had you not stepped in when you did, I don't know if I could be here today showing you what I've accomplished."
Wow.
So I think that has been a
Yeah.
peak of why we do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we are able to see resilience in other people even when they might not see it themselves. And so to be able to stand on the outside and support them through experiences like that and know that you can do it, and then to help them see that within themselves so that they can go do anything they want to do without us, right? That's the goal. That's really rewarding. That's really special.
However, I always have to ground myself, and I always have to really understand that I can't save the world. So, right, you're a new grad, you're
Preaching to
thinking,
the choir.
yay, here we go. But then after you get years under your belt, you realize, I cannot save the world. I will take it for those few that come back or even if I don't end up knowing whatever happens to them, but in their own life they've reached a good point of change, then at least that one person I can feel good about. But we cannot save everyone.
I think that realization post school and then being in the field was very hard to accept, because you get into a position and you're like, yeah, I'm going to help these people, I'm going to help these people, I'm going to do this and that and this. And then it's like, whoa. Actually, that's not how things work here.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a lot that goes into our systems and how we support others, and really just working with humans and where they're like meeting them where they are. And sometimes having to accept that sometimes we want something more than the client is ready for themselves, because it's really their journey, right? And if they don't want it, then they don't want it. You know, even when we want so badly to step in and find a way to help you out of this, because I hate to see my clients suffer, but it's like, this is your internal choice to make, you know, your internal journey.
I feel like that's a conversation we have every day at the hospital. Like, I feel like I just had that conversation yesterday, where, you know, there was a patient there and the patient wanted to go home, and it was within the patient's right to go home. And this person had very involved, very caring friends, but the friends started out their conversation with me over the phone by saying, you know, the patient absolutely cannot go home. And then it was me having to say, actually, this is where we're at, right? We're not going to override the patient's ability to speak for themselves and say what they want to say. And this is what they're communicating, you know, and then I had to kind of explain, this is where we are. This is what we can assist with. Like you're saying, this is what we can do, and this is what we can't do. So within what we can do, how do we, you know, provide as much support and help to that situation, knowing in this person's case, they're going home. So do they go home with X, Y, and Z added support, or are they going home with nothing?
Yeah.
You know, that having to navigate that conversation, I think, is on the daily in the hospital, on the daily.
Well, and the frustration with situations like that is not only do they have to be the ones willing to want to change or want the help,
Yeah.
but there are times where the system itself holds a lot of barriers. A lot of barriers with when we're dealing in the medical field, insurances, which kind of dictate quite a bit of what we can and cannot do.
Yeah.
Lack of resources in certain communities, resources being more accessible to this community over here, which is too far for us to reach. Certain things like that. That's very frustrating.
So what are some of the most common barriers that you guys work with at the hospital as the social workers?
I would say insurance. Yeah.
Okay.
No insurance, terrible. You couple no insurance with they can't care for themselves and they need placement. So that is a common one that we see in the hospital, and I also see a lot in the ER. So then it's a lot of that turns into family dynamics. That turns into, you know, as much as I wish we could, we're a hospital and we don't provide housing. We don't have housing to house people. So this person is going to A, return home, B, go with you, or you come up with C.
Yeah.
Right.
Another one that it gets me a little irritated when I think about it is, let's say a patient does have insurance and they want to do a drug rehabilitation program, whether it's inpatient or outpatient. So the patient has insurance. I'm not going to call out any insurances, but a particular one, no names, particular insurance. They have to call the patient, not us, the social workers, because they don't want to hear from us.
Right.
The patient has to call a certain phone number to get a certain referral to go to these services. So we've attempted to assist. Okay, well, here's the phone. Let's dial together. And we're on hold for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, that's us. And we're
Yeah.
getting frustrated. So we go back to the office and we have our speaker and we're on hold and we do other things. But the average person is going to be on hold for a little bit and they're going to say, you know what? Forget it.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
And so they're not receiving the services that at one point they wanted
Right. Right.
because it's not accessible. It is, but it isn't.
Which I'm sure is their goal.
Right. Which is horrible.
Yeah. I would like to think that the well-being of, you know, the humans that they're serving is at the forefront, but they are a business, right?
Yeah.
They're an entity. So that doesn't surprise me. I've heard some pretty crazy stories about insurance.
Yeah.
But being at a hospital where part of your role is to be able to link them and connect them with services through their insurance. So you're probably coming across this a lot then. So where you're like, well, I can't help you anymore. I need to get you to the people that can help you. But this is a difficult place. You know, it's like a stretch to get there.
I remember I was like unpleasantly surprised when I assisted a patient at the hospital. This is probably a few months back, maybe 6 months ago. And for whatever reason, I was like, okay, I have the time. Let's go ahead and call together. And so they had to call this intake number in order to find, you know, I had told them, you're going to be connected with a substance abuse counselor. You're going to do an intake interview with them right then and there over the phone. And then based on that, they're going to say, you're recommended for X, Y, or Z program, and then they'll work with the program to get you in. So that was my understanding of what to expect. That is what I educate and relay to the patient. We get on the phone. I help facilitate the phone call, but I tell the person, you need to be honest and speak to them. So he does. And then the response to that is, okay, expect a call in 24 to 48 hours from a substance abuse counselor for the intake assessment. And I remember saying, like, wait a minute, wasn't that what we just did? You know, and they were like, no, expect a call in 24 to 48 hours. and then they'll need to do another assessment. And I'm like, then what was this?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then I had to explain this person is currently living unhoused. They don't have a phone. That is why we called you from the hospital phone. So is there any way that this can be expedited? Because if he's discharged within 48 hours, there's no phone.
Right.
And but it took like significant advocacy and coming from, again, a social worker in the hospital who knows how to speak up and say this to be like, no, I need you to call him today. Like whether it's in 2 hours or this, whatever, if it's going to be today, or I think what I told them was I'll give you 24 hours, call the hospital phone number. This is the extension to reach the patient. This is my direct line. I mean, I must have provided like 3 different numbers.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, they reached out to me and I was like, if you reach out to me and I'm available, then I will go to him.
Yeah.
But it's like when those barriers are presented, like Jackie is saying, to professionals that are working to break down these barriers, it's beyond frustrating for the person trying to access them. And maybe they don't know how to advocate for themselves. Maybe they've never done this before.
Yeah.
Then what?
Absolutely. Right. And like you said, having to go through all that, then they may not even want the services.
Yeah.
They may not even take the extra step to do that because it's so hard to access.
Yeah.
I would start to feel hopeless too, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So in working with clients and these barriers frequently, how do you guys navigate that with the client, with your own frustration? How do you move through that?
I've learned to validate. I've learned to validate a person's frustration. And
Even our own.
And yeah.
Yeah, that's real, right?
Like, and being able to say, I'm stepping through this with you. I can see your frustration because I feel that too. Right? We've also had to learn, at least I'll speak for myself, I've had to learn like hacks for the system, right? So I've been able to say, okay, you're supposed to call this intake number if you want to seek any of these programs. But I do know about this program that you can try to access directly if they have availability, right? And so without being able to say, I recommend you go here over here, being able to educate a person on all of their options, from biggest to lowest barrier, right? Potential. But really, I think what's worked for me is being able to reflect and empathize with the human frustration side of things. Like, I'm sorry you're going through this. I'm going through it too.
Yeah.
You know?
Same.
Same. Going back to the office and kind of process whatever situation we find ourselves in, process with each other. Just learning how to leave it there in the office. We have the luxury. We're coming back at 8 o'clock. We'll deal with this at 8 o'clock. Whereas others might not have that luxury. But understanding our limitations and being okay with that, which is, I think, the hardest part.
I agree.
Jackie's had to teach me quite a bit about it's okay, leave it there. It'll be there for you. I went from such a high stress, like you never stop working when I was in foster care, to like Jackie with her disciplined schedule of 8 to 4:30.
I had to tell her, it's time for your lunch. Stop. Get away from the computer.
Pull me away from the computer. So I've come a long way.
And
This is good. This
we
is
always
growth.
talk, in social work, we always talk about self-care, but do we really do it?
Right.
Sometimes we don't.
Sometimes we don't, but I'm hoping here we do.
Yeah.
So in my old age,
How dare you?
Stop.
in my older age, I have learned that makes sense. Because, again, we cannot save everyone.
Yeah.
So as much as we work ourselves through our breaks, our lunch hours, we have to be able to manage our own mental health,
Yeah.
our own physical health, whether it's stepping away from the computer for, 5-15 minutes, taking a little walk, or just finding a little spot wherever it is that you work at, and just compress that moment to just kind of take a breather.
Yeah.
and then come back and do it all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something. It's taken a little while, but she's there.
But I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
That's good. I'm glad. Well, and I feel like it's hard to show up in difficult situations like we've just talked about if you're running on if you're running on fumes or if you're stepping into the situation already overwhelmed and you haven't eaten lunch.
Yeah.
I'm not great when I haven't eaten.
So it's the cliche of the airplane's about to fall and the things come down. And do you put the mask on first?
Yeah.
Or do you put it to, well,
Right.
gotta put it on first.
Right. Yeah, to be able to help the people around you. Right. Absolutely. I think that being okay with the fact that there are limitations for myself and I won't be able to change everything or fix everything overnight, that drives me crazy. And I don't know if this is just me, but it'll come to a point where sometimes I'll have this dialogue when I'm driving home where I'm like, okay, I need to care less because I need to find a way to like detach, right? But then it's like, no, I'm my best when I'm connected and tapped into what I'm doing. But I also do not want to absorb all these negative feelings that are coming from caring and not being able to make a difference that I want to make. And so it's like I'll wrestle internally with that idea and it drives me nuts. And then,
I smile because I know.
It's funny you mention that because when I first started working in social work, I would be so connected. This drive and I would come home and I didn't know how to shut it off. That was my early years. And when I moved over to medical social work, even my daughter one day told me, I see that you're much happier. I'm like, what do you mean? I like my job. I mean, I like what I did. I like what I do. And she said, no, you come home and you're home. You're not still at your work. You're not still thinking about client A, client B. You're here present with me. And that was a huge eye-opener for me in that I need to sort of learn how to compartmentalize my work. And it's time to go home. Now I'm first a mom. I'm a daughter, so I'm back to who am I? So I've had to learn how to really compartmentalize my work, and when it's not those hours, be okay with that.
Yeah. I'm still learning that.
And again, you're young in your career.
Yeah, I'm only like 3.5-ish years in. I think that I have gotten good at the discipline of starting and stopping and rests and my exercise and just spending time with people I care about outside of work to fill my cup. But the mental part of it, the emotional part of it, I'm still working on that, on being able to leave it here and not bring it here. But I just spin into an existential crisis of the world is so bad. Why is it so bad? Why is this happening? Why can't I fix this? And I hate it. I think that it comes from a place of love. It comes from a good place.
Absolutely.
But still learning that part. So
mine had to come in baby steps. So it's actually a funny story. So when I first started in my career as a social worker, well, I mean, my bachelor's degree is in psychology. And for years, I kept saying, I'm going to be a psychologist. That's what I'm going to do. But then, of course, therapy, I tell Jackie, doing therapy is the big bad scary for me. So when I realized, I'm actually terrified of that.
Which she's quite good at, but she really doesn't know it.
I believe it. I could see how someone talking to you would feel supported and safe. And that's a big deal. Not everyone can give off that energy just in spending time with them.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Jackie's worked with me quite a bit to say, you're kind of already doing therapy.
I believe it, yeah.
But it was my big bad scary. So when I started in the field, I was the bleeding heart, right? I was I'm going to fix everything for you. I'm going to do everything for you. It's okay. We got this. And I had to learn, no. You are not responsible for other people's actions. There is a difference between wanting better for someone and meeting them where they're at. And today, 15 years later in the field, I very much know that line. But when I start to burn out, so, going back to foster care. So prior to coming into medical social work, I was working in foster care. Loved that job, still love that field. But my God, does that take a toll on you, right?
Yeah.
And so when I was living in the Midwest, my mom came to visit me for 3 weeks over Thanksgiving one year. And love my mom. She's also very, very oblivious to her surroundings, not aware of much, right? So one night, when my mom, who was oblivious to everything, notices, Sairah, this person keeps calling you every night after 7, 8 o'clock, and you answered and you're still working. Why are you working so late at night? It was like, this light bulb went off. Like, oh my God, I'm literally every night, like 8 o'clock, 8:30, 7 o'clock, sometimes 11 o'clock at night. Here's emails, here's text messages, here's phone calls. Why is it 9:30 at night and I have my laptop and I'm opening it up and I'm working on service plans? And it was just like, oh my gosh, I need to stop.
Yeah.
So that's kind of when I started to make the decision that was going to be the last year that I was going to be there. And come the next summer, I'm moving back home, and I made a career change.
Yeah. Same. Before I was at the group home that I'm working for now, I was working for Riverside County, and I was doing forensics. So my adults, there was a lot of substance abuse, a lot of severe mental illness. And I remember at one point I was getting there at 6 a.m., leaving at 6 p.m. Would take the laptop, working till 11, waking up, still getting there early.
It's exhausting.
I could not handle it. Like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, I was not okay. It was just too much. And none of that was going to change anytime soon. Like,
good for
it's
you.
literally just on you. So that environment, the needs, the workspace, which was not great either, it was not going to change anytime soon. So I had to leave. I loved those clients. I loved that. I loved being able to work with them, but I couldn't handle it. It was just too much. You can't live like that. It's not.
It's not conducive.
Yeah, it's not. And work. You can't be living to work, right? You're supposed to work to live. Right, yep. Exactly. So, yeah. You mentioned burnout. How do you guys keep from burning out? Because I feel like we're in that space right now. What do you guys do not to burn out? Because I know for a fact, even in the hours that you're at the hospital, it's a lot every day. So,
well, I have to say I'm learning from Sairah.
Okay.
Really?
I am. Because she has calculated vacations. And it's not staycations.
Nope.
It's like, I want to live vicariously through your vacations.
Okay.
I take a vacation and leave the country. So like that is when I take time off. It's because I'm leaving the country. I'm going somewhere. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it's exciting.
I mean, some of us don't have that luxury.
I will teach you how to travel for very cheap.
Ooh, I'm going to need to be there for that conversation.
However, I think that if we don't do that,
you
are going to burn out very quickly.
I think I burned out while I was there at county. And to be honest, I think it took like over a year to like get back to what I felt like was myself.
I feel like we talk about burnout with that term, but none of us really, at least all the conversations that I had about burnout prior, we're just like, oh, don't burn out. But then no one actually experienced or explained what is it. I've only burned out once in any job, and I vowed after I experienced that because it was so low, it was so bad, it was so tough to come back from that I was like, never again.
Yep.
Right? And I didn't know that I had burned out until I had worked at this time, this was 10 years ago, I had worked at a nonprofit in LA, very, very difficult, stressful population to work with. I worked with C-sex, so commercially sexually exploited children, all domestically sex trafficked in one way or another in the LA area, like in Southern California. Loved those clients, like they were my own, right? Loved the population that I worked with. But my God, was that work hard. And I worked, to make matters worse, I worked for a fairly new nonprofit that really didn't know like how to operate that well.
Yeah.
And so it was at that time we were a staff of 6 people, myself included,
Mm-hmm.
4 case managers, myself included, and it was like the 4 of us run and do everything.
Oh,
Be at
wow.
every client's beck and call. You're on call 24/7. You're coming out in the middle of the night. You're driving
Oh,
here.
wow.
You're driving there. I was never at peace. I was never on my own, right?
Mhm.
And I realized more than a year in that I was more than burned out when I pulled up upside of a client's home. Loved this client, very, very sweet person, loved spending time with this person. But I had pulled up outside of their house about 30 minutes late, or no, 30 minutes early, and just sat in my car and cried. And I had never experienced that, like to where I couldn't even go in and literally couldn't go in and do my job, couldn't meet with a kid that was a kid that I enjoyed spending time with because I was sitting in my car crying. And I had never experienced that. And I'm thankful, like I had never experienced that before. And I'm thankful to this day I have not experienced that again.
Yeah.
But that was the bottom line for me. I was like, I can't be crying at work.
Wow.
You know, so that to me, I was like, no one told me up to that point, this is what burnout is.
Mm-hmm.
So once I learned, I was like, hard lesson learned, never again.
Yeah. Yeah. And how long do you feel like it took you to come out of that? And
So I want to say, if I remember correctly, I think that happened in September of that year. And that was when I made that decision that I was going to leave the agency, right? And I think at that time I was already like, I want to apply to graduate school. I want to kind of just do something different.
yeah.
So that was in September that I had decided I'm going to leave, but I wasn't going to transition until January. So it was because of the population that we were working with, I had to make peace with you're leaving. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, but you need time to transition these clients. You need time to do this right and do this proper and,
Yeah.
kind of get everything else arranged. And so I told myself, wait from September to pretty much the first week of January. And then it was like once I had told my supervisor at that time, I began telling clients, it was like, you have a light, you have a deadline, you have a time, it's going to be okay. But it was a lot of self-talk. It was a lot of being purposeful about, you know what, you don't need to answer the phone right now, so leave alone. You know, that kind of thing.
I think that what's frustrating is I think it's common like to be in work environments like that as a social worker. I think that because we're able to do so many things that we're spread thin and just the nature of working with people in such vulnerable positions, it's heavy.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're not in that position.
Me too.
Yes.
And I mean, I still love the work that they do. I would hope that as an agency, as a nonprofit, that they have set more boundaries in the lines of their work, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that the way an agency is run, especially nonprofits, but any business, any agency, any company, the way that it's run is going to make or break the impact that you can make, right? It's going to make or break the staff you have.
Yeah.
And that was the only agency that I can look back and think of where it was like, I loved the work, but it was not run very well. And you cannot put all of that on a person day in and day out, never have weekends, never have breaks, constantly getting texted, you're always getting called out. And when I was on call for that agency, being on call meant that you were going to get a call and then you were leaving and you were gone overnight. I often I would get calls at like 11 p.m. and then have to work all night and not come back till 6 a.m. And then I'm getting called at 7:30 and it was just that this is not conducive.
No.
I don't know how I lasted as long as I did, but I was there for 18 months.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. I remember I had probably been there a month, maybe. And I was driving home. So I had a long commute. I was driving home and my tire blew out on my way home. I think I ran over something. I was pulling into a gas station. My tire blew out. This is something that as a grown adult, I know how to handle. It doesn't make me cry. But my tire blew out and I pulled into this parking lot and I called my sister and I kid you not, I cried for an hour and a half. just on the
Wow.
phone, like over an hour away from home.
Yeah.
And it was my sister who told me in the phone call, I think that you're overworked. I think that you're feeling overworked.
It's not about the tire.
It's not the tire. The tire sucks.
She told me
This is not the
This is
tire.
not the tire. The tire was the last straw.
Right.
And so I've since then I've really come to like value how I feel, where I'm at, making time in my life for the things that I want to do, and also being really good at my job and really dedicated to my job, but also expecting the same back, right? Like I'm going to give my job all, that job better treat me well.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
I wish that they would touch on this subject a little bit more in grad school.
Yeah, I agree. And then not just saying,
Oh, burnout.
burn out.
What is burnout?
Yeah.
Right.
How do we check ourselves?
Mhm.
How do you get to a point where you're cognizant of what you're doing
Yeah.
and your daily routine
And how it's
when
affecting.
to know? Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that I wonder if part of it also has to do with like the level of awareness that you have within yourself and maybe the perception you have of yourself. I think at some point I thought it was a flex to be able to grind as hard as I did, right? And that was me basing, and I've talked about this with friends before, this was me basing my worth on my productivity. And so when I was able to grow out of that mindset, and I was like, wait, you're telling me that I am worthy no matter how much I get done today, like that my humanness and my value is not based on this. Why am I doing this? Like, why is this, So I think some of it has to do with like your own understanding of what actually loving yourself and respecting yourself and your needs. Also, like where you come to understand that.
Yeah.
Because I definitely wasn't thinking about all those things at one point.
No,
I think
totally guilty.
I had to like grow into it and learn
Well,
into
in
it.
a lot of businesses, they stress productivity. Productivity. I can dish out X amount of psychosocials, no problem. But what is the quality of my work?
Yeah, right.
Is the quantity superseding the quality of my work? And that's where I think, when you work with a big corporation, county level, big agencies, it's about productivity. When you really, or when you have the chance to really work for a smaller agency, the quality, I think, shines a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
And it's also kind of tiptoeing and figuring out where you stand when it comes to what quality are you willing to show and to have, and like what are you not willing or willing to sacrifice, right? Like I am not willing to sacrifice the quality of my psychosocial assessments or my, X, Y, and Z when I do it at work. So like when I'm doing something at work, when I'm meeting with a patient, when I'm handling a case, I'm going to do a damn good job, right? And I'm not willing to sacrifice that. So if this takes me my shift, if this takes me X amount of days, if this takes extensive follow-up, you can expect that of me. But I will not sacrifice now my sleep, my home life, my dog.
Yeah.
Those were all things that I didn't have before when I was sacrificing all that. And then the result of that was me pulling up outside of a client's house crying.
And you prioritizing those things.
Yeah.
You're still a good social worker.
Yes.
Like you're still good at what you do. That was my whole thing that I had to like get to. Like if I don't prioritize as opposed to me right now, I'm still a good social worker. Now I would argue that it makes me a better social worker to be able to prioritize my needs the way I would prioritize the clients when I'm on shift.
Yeah.
So
and when you get to a management position, something to be very aware of, something that I am very aware of is how am I molding and shaping these new social workers so that when they get to a point where they're in a position that I'm in, they can also help these social workers understand this as well.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, to me, balance is a huge word in my life.
Yeah.
You have to have balance.
Yeah.
balance in what you eat, balance in how much you sleep, balance in every sense of life.
Yeah.
And that includes work. And I think that oftentimes management sometimes forgets that.
Oftentimes.
So I stress almost on a daily basis, have you had your lunch? Have you had this? Have you had that? Because balancing that daily routine, balancing that will help productivity, right? Because if you have great employees who want to be there, who have had their rest, who know that their shift ends at such and such time, to know that they have a supportive management team, then they're going to want to be there and they're going to want to do the job and they're going to want to do it right.
Yep.
So
if I had a supervisor like that, like you at Riverside County, maybe I would have made it because of how much I truly loved my clients. If I had a supervisor and a team that was encouraging balance, not being the exact opposite and then expecting me to be that, if I had that, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
As social workers, like your supervisor is so crucial. It means so much to have a good. It's like it's a game changer. It does make or break. And I have for another day a series of experience with not great supervisors, and it's really hard, especially when you're pre-licensed. Because you rely on this person heavily. I'm looking to you for insight. And so to not have that, it sucks a lot.
I've told Jackie time in and time again, I'm like, Jackie, I love you as a person, and this is not me, for lack of better terminology, kissing your ass, but I've told her, like, I truly, truly feel that she is, you have been the best supervisor that I've had, right? And it's interesting to finally have such a solid supervisor. I'm not going to say towards the end of my career, right? Because I'm always wanting to grow, but it's certainly not the beginning of my career. It's somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, I think that I can better appreciate how supportive and how like just more of a mentorship our relationship has been because I've had supervisors that are not that. And I've still, even in those jobs, had to learn how to do this and did it on my own.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you have a supervisor that's like, one, you got this, you know exactly what you're doing on the job. And two, how are you doing otherwise? How are you doing here? How are you doing there? How can I help you? Let's learn about this. It's like, what?
Yeah, like, whoa. Wow, you have my back? What is happening?
But yeah, I will say, that's why I say it makes or breaks, you know?
Definitely.
When I burned out on that job that I had worked at before, I remember being in supervision with my supervisor at the time. And I think I was blatantly telling her this program that we were under, this on-call program at that time, I was like, I really think it's too much. I think that if you're going to put 3 people through this and that's it, myself being one of them, this is too much. And I remember feeling burned out. I had been working the whole night before, like on a call. I think I had 2 that week. I was crying in supervision. And the response that I got to all of that was, you're going to be on vacation next week, so get some rest.
Wow.
Yeah. Make or breaks.
That
right?
sounds about right.
Yeah.
I've definitely had a few responses like that.
And it's like, can I get some rest though? Because I'm still getting called when I'm, not supposed to be here and I'm supposed to be on vacation. So it just, I hope that like that agency and that staff has grown.
Yeah.
But that really taught me. That really taught me.
What's crazy is that I've had a lot of bad encounters with supervisors. And as frustrating as it is, it has truly contributed to my growth.
Yes.
I hate
absolutely.
it.
Isn't that crazy?
My friends that, were colleagues, not my supervisor, but they would say, this person, she's going to exist no matter where you go. And I have come to that acceptance. And in my current setting, there are staff that it's difficult for me to work with, but I know, I'm like, I got your ticket. What is it? I got your card. I got your number.
I see. Yes, I got
What's
your
the-
number.
Yeah, I got your number. Like I know what's happening now. I have to be able to disconnect from this and understand that you are your own individual. And you will show up exactly as you are. And so for me
In
to
whatever
expect
setting.
something different, that's on me. Like I need to understand that this person operates in this way. That's out of my control. So it's a trip.
That hits so close to home right now for me. I appreciate that, doesn't it?
I
girl.
can think of one thing that I've already told you to flush down.
Yeah, girl. I feel it.
Yes.
But it's because of those supervisors, because trust me, I've had my share. That's the reason why I'm my own type of supervisor. Because I don't want to be that one.
Yeah, right. And that is my hope someday, to someday be a support to a team and be a genuine support, because I know that it'll make the world of a difference. So to wrap up today, let's start with Jackie and then go to Sairah. What is it that fills your soul?
Wow. My family. In a nutshell. Not just my immediate family, but my extended family.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Same. I feel that. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, my dog.
Yes. Just show me a picture. So
That's
cute.
my baby. My dogs in general, animals, my family, just like everything that kind of contributes to what makes me happy outside of my work, right? Because my work does make me happy, doing what I do. But I'm a huge animal lover, a huge animal rights activist. I love traveling. I love going different places, meeting different people, having random cool conversations with, people who I'll probably never see again, and that's okay. But I think just connection, right? Connection to dogs, connection to people, my family, movies, the whole works.
I love it.
Yeah, connection.
Yeah.
I like that.
Connection. Yeah, definitely. I feel that. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to wrap it up. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening to the Souly Human podcast. Episodes release on the first Friday of every month. So on YouTube, on Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. And my hope is that as you go into your day or as you go into your week, that you are able to practice empathy with yourself the way that you would someone that you care about. So thank you guys so much.